Alright everybody, welcome back to Game 2 of the Sarasota, Florida City Championship Finals. In Game 1 we saw Michael Pramawat get a turn 2 Magnezone and pretty much dominate Luke Reed's 6 corners, big basic deck. And we are here in Game 2. Hopefully we'll see a little bit better of a game this time around. This is actually a fairly close matchup. It just comes down to how quickly the Magnezone player sets up and how many prizes the 6 corners deck can get ahead by the time that deck does set up, and how many energy they can get into play, and honestly how many Terrakians they play, because Terrakian is your main attacker against this sort of deck. It just sort of knocks everything out in one hit once you have the energy for it. The problem is having the energy for it, because you don't have any energy acceleration, so you have to attach one energy at a time, and then once your thing gets knocked out, you're back to square one. And this is why you just need to build up energy in play and hope that the Magnezone Eelektrik player does not set up very quickly and remove your energy from play. So I do believe that was the second mulligan from Michael. Hopefully we'll get this started here soon. But let's talk about the matchup a little more. Usually you do want to start with Virizion. Luke had the option to start with that last game, but he actually opted for Terrakian. I think Virizion would be the better option just because you do get to double draw that first turn, and you still have the option to Catcher and knock out things turn 2. You can knock out Cleffa, you can knock out Tynamo. I guess those are the really only two, but those options are going to be their turn 2 pretty much every time. You know, at least the Tynamo will be there. You'll have something to knock out, and even if you don't, you can just attach somewhere else and double draw again. So, either way, Virizion seems like the best starter for the deck. I don't know if starting with Terrakian is a great idea. Also, because you want to use a non-Terrakian attacker to try to take prizes in this matchup. You know, if you use Terrakian to try to take all of your prizes and you only run 2 or 3 Terrakians, well, once those get knocked out, you're out of attackers, really. So you really want to lead off with something else that's not Terrakian, because you need the Terrakians to kind of finish the game. You need other stuff to take those prizes at the start, and he's going to clean up for you. But he can't do it by himself. You know, he's only one giant castle wall crashing Pokemon thing. Read the flavor text if you don't know what I'm talking about. But he can only do so much. He can do a lot, but Terrakian, he's not going to win the matchup for you on his own, so he needs some help. He needs some help from the other corners. And right now we are seeing an absurd amount of mulligans from Michael. Not sure what's going on here. This deck does play a good amount of basics, but this can happen, you know. Just when you play a card game, you never know what's going to happen. You might not open with a basic Pokemon for a while. So, here we go. Let's try this one more time. Eventually, if he does not get a basic, we could see the Judge Ball come into effect, where a Judge comes over and keeps flipping over cards until you get a basic, but thankfully we don't have to have that happen here. And we do see he does have a basic. Now, against most decks, you would not like to give them so many mulligans, but if you're going to give a deck like 5 extra cards, you actually don't mind if it's this big basic deck, because they really can't explode or anything like that. I mean, if you're facing a Magnezone deck, you're thinking, oh man, I just gave this guy so many cards, he's gonna get a turn 2 Magnezone for sure now. But when you're facing this deck, you're thinking, oh man, well, he's just gonna attack with his basic Pokemon turn 2 anyway. So giving him the mulligans didn't matter a whole lot. I mean, it'll give him cards like Eviolite and Catcher and Energy, but it's not nearly as bad as if you were facing like a Magnezone deck or anything with evolutions, really, that would just kind of go off turn 2 and just kind of steamroll you because they got set up. Luke does have quite a few supporters in his hand, but really he doesn't have much, sadly enough. He really doesn't have anything. He's got Juniper and Virizions and lots of basics. He doesn't actually have any more energy, so we might have to see him Juniper next turn. He does have a Pokegear as well. Oh, he does have an Oak's New Theory, so he won't have to discard those things. But he didn't actually get energy, which is quite strange. He does have to put a double colorless on a Terrakion and an Eviolite, so he will threaten a turn 2 knockout with Retaliate, since Michael's Pokemon are weak to fighting, but that's about it. From there, we're going to have to see if Michael can stabilize. We're actually going to have to see if Luke can get a fighting energy to actually use that attack, but if he does, he's going to be putting on a lot of pressure very quickly, because, well, Terrakion just kind of knocks out Magnemites and Tynamos and Cleffa and, well, almost anything in the deck for just 2 energy, so that's going to look good for Luke early on. We're just going to have to see how far ahead he can get before Michael gets that coveted Magnezone into play. And actually he does not retreat and use Eek, so this is probably a big red flag for Luke, saying, wait a second, you had an energy, you did not retreat and Eek, surely you have a turn 2 Magnezone. You were waiting to play your Rare Candy Magnezone, that's why you didn't Eek. And Luke is just looking at his hand thinking, uh-oh, I don't have an N to stop this. So, uh-oh. I'm sure if Luke had an N, he would certainly play it. He's gonna go for a Pokegear, see if he gets one, and there's the N. Oh, I'm not sure why he didn't take that. It's pretty obvious that Michael has a very good hand here. Maybe Luke just wasn't thinking about it. He could have grabbed the N there, forced Michael to shuffle his hand back in, and almost certainly slowed him down, because it's not very likely to open with a Rare Candy and a Magnezone in your opening hand. But Michael has it, and Luke, if he were paying attention, he would know that Michael has it, but instead he's going to Juniper all of these cards away, saying, you know what, I don't need these. I'm just going to go right ahead and discard them all. And look at that, he still doesn't have a fighting energy, so this is a horrible break for Luke. He's going to have to play a switch and just double draw this turn, which is not good. This is one of the bad parts about running so many different energy types. He does play fighting energy and rainbow energy. He just doesn't have any in his hand, and things are going to go downhill very quickly. There is that turn 2 Magnezone 2 games in a row. And I wouldn't be surprised if Michael takes this game as well, just based on that start, but a lot of things can happen here. You know, turn 2 Magnezone is not the end of the game by any means. It just means he is at a very high advantage and very good odds of winning the game. He does play a Sage's Training. Unfortunately, there are no Lightning Energy in his top 5. Usually when you play Sage's Training, it's to dig through your deck to get crucial cards, but also it serves to get Lightning Energy in the discard pile for Dynamotor, and in this case there were no lightning there, so not really the greatest in the world. But we do see Michael puts the lightning onto Magneton, and he does have an Eelektrik in play. He's just gonna retreat though and Eek this turn. It looks like he could have used Speedball for 20, but no reason to really risk the Magneton getting hurt at all, and we're gonna see an Eek. So now I'm sure Luke this turn will want a catcher so he can Leaf Wallop the Tynamo for a prize, or if Cleffa wakes up, he will simply Leaf Wallop the active. I would actually prefer to catcher Tynamo if he had the option. We'll see here if that's the case. Alright, and Cleffa does stay asleep, so he's going to need a catcher to put on any pressure this turn, which is really unfortunate. Even after all those mulligans, things did not go Luke's way. He really hasn't seen any catchers, any fighting energy. You know, he played a Juniper and discarded a ton of cards, and then drew 7 more, and he still hasn't seen a single fighting energy or rainbow energy, so he hasn't even seen a Pokemon catcher either. So this is really not going well for him. Puts another Eviolite on Terrakion. Again, that's really not going to do a whole lot, but might as well get rid of it. And I wouldn't be surprised to see him play the N. And he actually could play it before he attaches the energy, because where he puts the energy is highly dependent on whether or not he has a catcher. If he does get one, he will attach to Virizion for sure. If he does not have a catcher, then he'll probably attach to a Terrakion. So, tough decision. You know, you kind of gamble if you use an N here and then don't draw an energy. That is far worse than not having a catcher this turn, because energy attachments are everything with this deck. So he's just going to put the energy on to Terrakion, and then Oak's New Theory. He's going to play it very conservatively, which is not a bad thing. He could have waited, but he realizes how important the energy drops are to this deck, and it's probably going to make him a little sour. There was a catcher and an energy in his top 6, so it would have been a big turn for him to get a prize. However, just having the energy attachment is good enough. He now has 2 rainbows in his hand, so he'll be able to attach to those Terrakions and get a nice Retaliate knockout. And, yeah, he's not in horrible shape. He might be in horrible shape after this. A second Magnezone is on its way. And, yep, there it is. So, this is going to be increasingly difficult to deal with, because 2 Magnezones are much tougher to deal with than 1. You know, you can knock out 1 and try to cripple your opponent, and if they don't have a second one, that's great. But when they do have a second one, it really doesn't do a whole lot. And here we go. Everything is set up at this point. There are 2 Magnezones, 2 Eelektriks, and 3 energy on the board. However, Luke doesn't really have anything to threaten, but Pramawat actually did not have any energy in his discard pile. He didn't have a very good hand, even after the magnetic draw, so he actually has to eke this turn, which is pretty surprising. But, you know, he realizes he is pretty much set up, and the longer he waits, the better off he is, because when the Magnezone Eelektrik deck gets set up, it's definitely the favorite. The one advantage that the big basic deck has is that it's quicker, it can take prizes early on, and all that stuff, but you know, when you only take 1 prize and the Magnezone deck is already set up and in your face, suddenly things aren't looking very good. Now, Luke did Leaf Wallop for his first prize, and the unfortunate part is he had to attach a rainbow. And now we have a catcher. Michael's taking one of these Terrakions because he realizes, okay, I need to knock out Terrakion before it retaliates me for a knockout. And this is a very good decision on his part. There's Sage's Training as well. Do you see a rare candy in there? And 3 lightning, so he's just going to dump the 3 lightning. That could not have gone better for him. And, yeah, you know, he realizes that Terrakion is the big hitter. He doesn't need to knock out Virizion. He needs to knock out Terrakions. And he's going to catcher it out. Because if he knocks out the Virizion, a Terrakion comes on and retaliates him for a knockout. And then if he knocks out the first Terrakion, then the second one comes out and knocks him out. So he's effectively eliminating one of his Magnezones being knocked out, because he is taking out that first Terrakion before it gets to retaliate him. And now Luke is just left with 1 Terrakion. I don't know if he has a third one in his deck. I'm sure we'll find out in these turns shortly. We didn't see it last game, so I really don't know. But, I mean, honestly, the game might just come down to that, because, see Michael fidgeting with his stuff over there. Now Luke has some decisions to make. But, yeah, as I've been saying, Terrakion is the man in this matchup. It defines everything. Now, I do see Luke has Super Rod in his hands, so he can certainly play that down. And he probably should, to get Terrakion back into his deck. I'm not sure what he's thinking about here. He definitely needs to get that back into his deck. He can get the Shaman as well, and he'll be forced to take a third Pokemon, but it's imperative that he puts the Terrakion back into the deck so he can get it for later. You know, he might want to wait until both Terrakions are knocked out, but, you know, with so many things like N and Judge in Michael's deck, there's no way he can know that he even will have the Super Rod in his hand the next turn. So, better to play it now and shuffle it back into his deck while he still can, still has it in his hand, because, you know, he'll need that Terrakion in there no matter what. That's going to be the only way he can win the game, and he's going to play an N anyway, so I like that, and uh-oh. Michael just kind of ruined everything. Accidentally bumped his cards. I'm not sure what happened. He accidentally let go of his deck when he was shuffling, and cards flew everywhere. Looks like the prizes weren't affected at all. That's kind of silly. But, yeah, it looks like everything's okay. He's just going to be able to shuffle his deck and go through with this. I'm sure if Luke really wanted to, he could call the judge on that, but these guys are friends. I mean, he'll joke about it, but I think it'll be okay. And we're just going to wait and see what these guys draw off of their 5 cards for end. Now, this game for Luke is going to come down to, can he get another Terrakion into play? And if he can Michael get another Magnezone into play? These are the 2 big things deciding the game right now. Even though he does not have a Terrakion benched with energy on it, he does have that Shaman available to him. So he could play the Terrakion out of nowhere and move the energy that are on Virizion over to his Terrakion. And then be able to retaliate or land crush if he needs to. And there we go, there's a judge. It's going to reset Luke's hand, which is actually a good thing for Luke. He really didn't have much going for him in that hand. He had a Juniper, but he had a bunch of cards that he really didn't want to discard. So, kind of a break there for Luke. But maybe not, because that's a little worse. And Michael will put down his Zekrom. And right here, the Eviolite is preventing Zekrom from using Bolt Strike for a knockout, so that is a big deal. You know, whenever the Magnezone Eelektrik deck can get prizes without using Lost Burn, that is a big deal, because you never want a Lost Burn for all of your prizes. You'll just run out of energy. And here is bad news for Luke. Rare Candy, Magnezone. So, looks like Pram is going to have enough Magnezone firepower here to really finish off the game. Refill his hand up to 6. Now, even if Luke knocks out this Magnezone, now there's another one. I don't know if he has enough Terrakions to deal with all of these. It's going to be an uphill battle from here, you know. Usually it is when your opponent gets, you know, a turn 2 Magnezone, but hey, you never know. Sometimes you can just knock out all the Magnezones and win anyway. Luke needs a Miraculous Top Deck, which is not that card. Probably hoping for a Collector. Now, he does have a Pokegear in his discard pile, though. So, he could Junk Arm for the Pokegear and go for it, which is really all the choice he has. So he's going to have to do that right now. Probably Junk Arm away the Virizion and a Catcher. Getting that Pokegear. And praying for the best. I really don't see what other option he has. He can attach first, just because he knows he'll have to Shaman anyway. Might as well put the damage on a Pokemon that is not Terrakion. So, there we go. Here's a Junk Arm. Yep, gets rid of the Virizion and the Catcher. Searching for the Pokegear. Alright, he's going to look at his top 7. Hoping for a Collector, I guess. He gets an Oak's New Theory, which is not bad at all. And he'll probably play that. I don't know if he'll play the Catcher. I don't think he should. Not too sure what advantage that would give him. You might want to get it out of his hand, but he might need it for later. So, I would probably just play the Oak's New Theory and go for it. But, yeah, Luke's in the same dilemma. You know that he wants to play the Catcher to get rid of it, but he also might need it later, so he doesn't really know. Do I play it? Do I get rid of it? And it looks like Luke's actually going to Catcher out the Zekrom, which kind of a funky choice. He knows there's no energy on any of Michael's Pokemon, and none in the discard pile. So I actually don't really like this play. You know, he's putting the energy back into the discard pile. I don't really know. It's a tough call, but overall I don't think I like it. Zekrom is not your priority here. You need to knock out Magnezone, because those are the things that are going to really take you out of this game. But he decided to go for Zekrom, so, well, what do I know? And here's the Shaman. He's actually going to have to waste it on moving the energy to Zekrom. Now, he puts all 3 onto the active. Not sure why he did this, but let's Well, you might have thought he was going to use Bolt Strike, but if he uses Bolt Strike, then Outrage knocks him out. So, he might realize, probably shouldn't have put all 3 energy onto that active Zekrom. Oops. He only needs 2, because he's going to use Outrage this turn. If he doesn't, there's something wrong with him in the head. But, honestly, Luke just ran out of gas. He does not have a very good hand. He's kind of run out of options at this point. You know, he can attack with his Zekrom, but eventually it's going to be knocked out. He's just going to Outrage for 20. Maybe the moving all the energy there isn't bad, since he'll need 2 of those to Bolt Strike for a knockout anyway. You know, maybe that's not too bad of an idea. And, you know, if he uses Celebration Wind to move the energy off of Zekrom, then you know, wherever the energy was could have been a catcher target. You know, if he left it on a Virizion, that's just an easy catcher target, just like this. Virizion comes out, so maybe moving the energy, all of them to the Zekrom, was not a very bad idea at all. So I actually don't mind that now that I really think about it. But basically this turn is going to be the one that seals the game for Michael, I would think. He's going to take the prize lead first of all. And he's junk arming 2 more lightning into the discard pile so he can get those back. He has pretty much everything he needs to win this game in his hands, and he's got the lightning in his discard. I'm sure he's got a switch in his hand somewhere, so even catcher won't really do much. And really, he's going to take the prize lead. He's going to be able to Lost Burn for his last 3 prizes, I would think. And I don't see a whole lot Luke can do about it. It's just unfortunate. He actually didn't even play an energy that turn. But he just used Bolt Strike. And I think Luke realizes that this is pretty much over at this point. He's just not going to have the energy acceleration to keep up with Michael. His stuff's going to be knocked out in 1 hit. And there's really not a whole lot he can do about it. Michael just got out way too fast. 2 games in a row. Turn 2 Magnezone 2 games in a row, and there's really not much you can do about that with the 6 Corners deck, because it's just not that strong when a deck is fully set up. It really gets its advantage by being more consistent and faster than most decks, and that just wasn't the case here. There's nothing you can do about a turn 2 Magnezone unless you kind of knock it out with Terrakion quickly enough. But that didn't happen, and now things are looking ugly. Luke's just kind of shaking his head, looking for some stuff to do. I don't know if there's really anything left for him to do. Checks his discard pile to make sure. And he's going to take another look. You know, his only option might be Pokegear to try to get another supporter. Maybe just checking out how many resources he has left. Really, he doesn't have much going for him. There's that Shaman on his bench that's always going to be a catcher target. An easy one for Thunderous to knock out, and then Lost Burn will most likely end the game, and there's not a whole lot he can do about it. So Luke will just kind of mull over his options, see if there's some way out. I mean, he does only have 3 prizes left, so maybe there could be a way he can come back. But, you know, there we go. He's junk arming for the Pokegear. Looking at his top 7, and, you know, the only draw supported there is N, which is unfortunate, but he might have to just kind of accept it and go for the 3 cards and hope for it. Hope to get something big off this. I actually don't know what he's trying to get off of this, to be honest, but he's just kind of playing it out because it's the last game. And once again, Pram drops his cards near his prizes, and Luke's just shaking his head like, you cheater. But just an accident. You know, people are tired at this point. This is very late in the marathon. Probably the 4th or 5th tournament at this point. And people start getting sloppy. They start making mistakes. And in general, people are just tired. They're sick. It gets really late at night. So, just kind of happens. Now, Michael's gonna probably try to get a switch this turn. Catches for the Shaman, and just goes for it with Magnetic Draw. I don't believe he's played a switch yet, so There will not be a junk arm target for him. He's going to have to draw into the switch. But really, there are enough catchers, junk arms, and switches left in his deck for him to just win the game outright. There's really no way for Luke to prevent him from winning. There's no energy on his side. He doesn't have any supporters in his hand besides a collector. He doesn't have Terrakion in play. So it's really looking ugly. But here we go. Here's an N. Maybe he'll draw a better hand this time. I can't think of a card combination that he could actually draw. And yeah, Luke actually doesn't cut Michael's deck. Which just kind of shows, alright, yeah, I think the game's over. And, alright, there's a lightning. He puts it onto Magnezone. Looks like he didn't draw the switch. So, I don't think he has a magnetic draw remaining. But he does have 2 catchers left in his hand, it looks like. And he's going to have to pass. So, kind of a wasted catcher, but it really doesn't matter. Luke pushes up Reshiram with the switch and passes, so yeah. Luke doesn't really have anything going on his side either. So it's just going to be kind of painful until Pram just draws his switch. And you might have to play another N this turn. He could junk arm away some stuff. I don't know if he wants to. I'm not sure how many junk arms he's used. But if he runs out of switches and junk arms, then he could potentially get in a spot where he gets stuck with an Eelektrik active. So I don't know if he wants to waste a junk arm. But looks like he does. And he is just going to thin his hand down to draw more cards. And I still don't see that switch. There's a collector. He sees the switch in his deck. Looks like there might be 2 switches in his deck still. So he sees it's in there. He's going to get it eventually. And Luke's just kind of open now, thinking, oh, maybe I can trap you with that Eelektrik active. And you won't be able to attack me because you don't have switch or junk arm. Maybe you'll deck out. And this is really Luke's only hope at this point. This is why he has not just left the game at this point. But as we see, there's the switch. And that is pretty much going to be it. Thunderous comes out. Luke shakes his head. He understands that this is probably the game. And there's Disaster Volt for a knockout. And really, as long as Pram has a switch or a junk arm left, the game is pretty much over. Luke goes ahead, brings out Magnezone, puts down Terrakion, plays his hand down to 0, and ends his turn. So, Pram just... Alright, there's the junk arm, so he just Dynamotors onto Magnezone, and he's going to see Lost Burn for the game. So, there you have it. Michael Pramawat is your Sarasota, Florida City Champion. Congratulations to him. Congratulations to Luke on 2nd place as well. At this point, both players have a 1st and a 2nd place at the marathon, so a very successful run for both of them. Congratulations to both. Thanks everybody for watching. We'll be back with more videos soon. Just stay tuned. Keep checking back to see when we post more. But hope you enjoyed it. Take care, everybody, and I'll see you next time.